Hello there, I'm Black Bright News, and I wanted to talk a bit about an article. Well, it's a discussion or a comment I read on Facebook by Richard Lindo, and he was concerned about non-Jamaicans being deported to Jamaica from America. And because it's such a sensitive subject, and because I tend to ad lib and get passionate, I'm going to read from my notes, which I have thought about really hard, just so I can provide a balanced view. So, first of all, I want to say good morning to everyone. This video was prompted by Richard Lindo, who was concerned that Jamaica was taking on non-national deportees without giving it enough thought. When I read it, it really made me stop and wonder how ordinary Jamaicans feel when they hear that a powerful nation is asking something of a much smaller one. And because I have one foot in Britain and another foot in Jamaica, I understand that British culture of diplomacy, understatement and subtle pressure, while also understanding the Jamaican instinct to guard sovereignty and dignity. Jamaica has often demonstrated diplomatic skill by working through regional bodies such as Caribbean Community, CARICOM, building alliances with other Caribbean nations and negotiating terms rather than simply accepting them. We need to recognise that sometimes a small state's leverage comes not from its size, but from its strategic importance, political stability, geographic location, or international reputation. However, this discussion about deportees is really asking a deeper question. How does a small nation protect its independence while maintaining good relationships with a powerful ally? I thought Richard raised some interesting points, especially his reference to the Orville-Etoria case, because it asks Jamaicans to consider the issue from the opposite perspective. If Jamaicans objected when a Jamaican citizen was sent to a country with which he had no connection, should they be comfortable when similar arrangements affect other people? So for me, this is not only about deportation, but something else. As many of you know, I'm of Jamaican heritage, though I was born and raised here in the United Kingdom. The article was discussing reports that Jamaica may be considering an arrangement with the United States that could see non-Jamaican deportees being sent to Jamaica under a third country program. Now, all human beings, they deserve dignity and respect. Whether they receive it is a different matter. But as I was reading the article, I found myself thinking about what it must be like for a small island nation when a large, powerful country comes knocking at their door with a proposal. Is it really a request? Is it a partnership? Or is it one of those situations where everybody knows there's more going on under the surface? I'm not suggesting that Jamaica is being forced into anything because we do not know all the details, but I think some people will understand what I mean when I say that requests resonate differently depending on who is making the request. I see it all the time in everyday life. A manager may ask if I would be willing to take another responsibility on at work. Technically, I can say no. Nobody's forcing me or threatening me, yet somehow I suspect there may be consequences if I refuse. The request is polite, professional, and perfectly reasonable, but there is an underlying pressure to accept. As I reflected on this, I wondered whether some Jamaicans might be feeling something similar. Jamaica has a long history. It is a nation that has endured slavery, colonial rule, economic hardship, and many struggles on its journey towards self-determination. Because of that history, I can understand why some people may be sensitive when decisions appear to involve powerful countries and smaller nations. The concern may not actually be about the individuals being deported, but is Jamaica being treated as an equal partner? Does this arrangement genuinely benefit Jamaica? What happens if the numbers increase in the future? Who carries the responsibility if things do not go according to plan? At the same time, we do not yet know everything about the proposal. There may well be benefits that have not been fully explained to the public. There may be safeguards in place. There may be conditions that allow Jamaicans to accept some cases and reject others. Until all the facts are known, we shouldn't speculate, as difficult as that is. I do believe that transparency is important. If there are benefits for Jamaica, explain them. If there are costs, explain those too. If there are risks, be honest about them. The Jamaican people are perfectly capable of weighing the facts and forming their own opinions. As I continue to reflect on Richard's comment, I realise that it touches on something that many of us understand regardless of where we live. We all want to feel that decisions affecting us are being made because they are in our best interest, not because somebody more powerful has decided what is best for us. Perhaps that is what some people are struggling to put into words. It's not necessarily fear, it's not necessarily anger, it may simply be a desire to protect something precious, and that something is dignity. The dignity of being heard, the dignity of being respected, the dignity of knowing that your country has a voice and that voice matters. Whether this proposal ultimately proves to be a good idea or a bad one, something time will tell, but I do think the questions being asked are important. Citizens have a right to understand what is being proposed and why it's being proposed, what the benefits are and what the potential consequences might be. I mean, why Jamaica as opposed to Colombia or, the Philippines? For me, this story is more than immigration. It is about sovereignty, partnership and trust. It is about how small nations navigate relationships with larger nations while remaining true to their own priorities and their own people. As always, these are simply my reflections after reading the article by Richard and looking into the story for myself. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe Jamaica should consider such an arrangement if there are clear benefits? Or do you think this is a step too far? Let me know your comments, and as always, let's keep the conversation respectful. Take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day. So do have a wonderful day, but I would like to hear your comments because sometimes, we make judgments and we criticise government and really they don't have a choice. We are all puppets in the grand scheme of things. There's always somebody pulling the strings. So even though it looks like, you can accuse Jamaican government of saying, yes, they're going to agree to it, sometimes they're so reliant on these larger entities economically and in other ways for support. And they know that, even though it's asked of them, they know that there are going to be implications if they do not comply. And so really, they don't really have a choice. And yes, they might have a choice. You might say, hold your dignity and say no. And, we'll start from scratch like we've done in the past. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. When we became independent, we lost a lot of resources from the UK and the USA. And look at us now. But you still have to remember that, we do need help from someone. And is that someone going to be powerful enough to support us if we say no? If Jamaicans say no? And that is the questions. The Jamaican government would have had to have looked into other options, or maybe they are looking into other options. But we've had that with the UK, haven't we? There's always this trade-off with deportees, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I mean, why don't you send them back to the country that they were born? Why are you sending them to third-party countries? That's what I don't understand. And creating conflict where there doesn't need to be conflict. There's an argument that some countries, they're not taking them back. They're not taking criminals back. They're saying, look, that person was either born in the country or they were raised in that country, and therefore that country has a responsibility to keep them. The government is saying, look, it's your heritage. You should take them back. They're criminals and they're no good to our system and they're costing our system money. So it's a hard one. And like I said, I would appreciate what you think about this because it's not an easy road and nothing is ever black and white. Everything's got consequences and we have to weigh up the consequences and the implications and the repercussions. And so I'm going to leave it there for now. Look forward to hearing from you. You take care. And I'm Myrna Loy, Black Bright News.